Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode, part of the Microsoft Sentinel in the Field series. Remember that you have all the episodes of our show in the link that you can see below. And again, today we have another great topic and guest. Javier, how you doing, brother?
Hello, Chris. Yes, indeed. So today we have Idan Bellayev from the Sentinel Product Group to talk to us about user entity behavior analytics. Welcome, Idan.
Hey, thanks for having me. Hey, everyone. I'm happy to be here on your show.
Definitely. So, Idan, can you briefly describe to the audience what is UEBA? Why is UEBA so important for every security operations center out there?
Yes, of course. So UEBA is a cybersecurity solution that basically detect anomalies or anomalous behavior of entities in the network organization using machine learning and AI. And think about it like you have this gray area when on one end you have the normal activities of users, and at the other end you have like obvious attacks that can be detected using rules or basic kind of detections. And you have this whole gray zone in the middle of suspicious activities that are basically going under the radar and are much more difficult to detect. And UEBA is here to help with those suspicious activities. If you think about it, it can be like just the normal activities that might be slightly different, but they also can be part of the attacker's skill chain. So we really want to surface those and help the SOC analysts really understand if those are part of a more complicated or complex attack. And that's what we're here to do.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dan. So just so the audience knows, we do have an UEBA engine within Microsoft Sentinel, right? Can you tell us more about how this engine works and what insights it provides to customers?
Yes, of course, I'd love to. Let me share my screen with you. I'll show you a slide that will help me explain to you. So basically what we're doing in Sentinel UEBA is the following. And the first thing that we do is that we filter the data that goes into the UEBA engine. We want to make sure that we only take the data that is really beneficial for UEBA anomaly detections. Once we do that, we do what we call user resolution. Here, basically, we make sure that different accounts of the same user will be resolved into the same user. We're doing this because we want to make sure that we take into consideration different identifiers of the same people who operate the users. And by doing that, we create a more tight, sensitive, and accurate baseline when we're doing modeling for user behavior. Also, we're doing lots of contextual enrichments that we do from entity provider that we take information from, like AD or AAD, and I'll tell you a bit more about it in a minute. Step here will be to do the actual behavioral profiling. So we have different layers of behavioral profiling. For example, we look into the historical activities of a user. So if we're talking about login, we'll try to see maybe it was the first time that the user was connected from a certain geolocation, like China, for example. Mm-hmm. We will also look into the peers of the user to see if maybe it wasn't the first time for the user to connect from China, but it's an uncommon behavior for the user peers. And the last step here will be to compare this behavior to the entire tenant organization. So maybe it was the first time I connected from China, none of my peer has ever done it, and basically it's the first time that someone do it in the whole organization. We also add another layers of data. And like, for example, if you have public IP on the raw event, we'll be able to translate it into threat indicators. So we will compare this indicator with TI repositories, and we will let you know, for example, if it matches with any botnet network that is familiar in this repository.
Idan, one question here. What is the TI feed that is being used by this UEBA engine to tag those indicators? Is it an internal Microsoft feed?
Yes, it is. It is Interflow by Microsoft.
Okay, perfect.
Also, we will let you know the geolocation of a specific IP if we see one on the raw event. This will help you basically get more understanding of what happened in the event by giving you more context. And it will also help us create a better baseline in anomaly detection. Another cool thing that we do is what we call user blast radius. It's an indicator that tells you the potential of the user to be dangerous if it is being compromised by an attacker. So we look at security groups, Azure roles, and the positioning of a user in the organizational tree. And we will let you know with an indicator of low, medium, or high, what is the blast radius of your user in the organization. And eventually, we will also add information about the host or IP. So for example, if the user is an admin or a local admin on the machine, we will let you know. And the output here will be just this enriched event with all the data that we gathered that will eventually become an anomaly if it will be triggered as one. And this is just an example of how this whole process looks like. So first of all, you have the raw event. In this example right here, this is a 4624 Windows on-prem security event, which just means a successful login to a Windows machine. You can see that you don't have a lot of data there. So by using UEBA, we'll do contextual information enrichment. We will add lots and lots of enrichments from entity repositories like AD or AAD. So now you know the display name of the user, their email, their title, and their manager name, maybe the department that they work at, their office location, and all of those things that you might need to get a better understanding of the event and eventually determine if it's a true or false positive. We will also provide information about the device, the geolocation, and the TI, like I mentioned before. We will add the behavioral insights as well. So in this case, we'll let you know that this is the first time that Jeff has accessed this finance server. None of Jeff peers has ever accessed this server before. And also, no one has ever accessed from China into the organization. So we have a lot of juicy details here that might help us understand if this is a true positive anomaly. And for that, we eventually will trigger an anomaly into anomalies table in Log Analytics with all the crucial information that you need to know about this event, with evidence for why we decided that this event was anomalous, and also MITRE tactic and technique to provide you with some more context.
So Idan, let me ask you this. I really love how you're transforming the raw data and you're building a story when it comes to the entity. You know, you're adding contextual information. You want to add additional confluence to really understand whether or not this is normal behavior. When it comes to UEBA and Sentinel, are these insights somehow stored in Sentinel? Can you show us a bit of the architecture and where the UEBA sits within the larger Sentinel picture?
Of course. I have just the right slide to help you understand this better.
Excellent.
So we have the customer data. It can be first-party data like Azure or Windows events, and it can also be a third-party data that goes into Sentinel. And you can see the logs coming into Sentinel right here. Once you enable the UEBA engine, those logs will go into the engine and basically transform into enriched data like we have just learned. All these great information and enrichments will go into Log Analytics, into the behavioral analytics table. Other than that, we also gather information about users, whether if it's from Azure Active Directory or through the on-prem Active Directory if you are also a Microsoft Defender for Identity customer. So as well, it will go through the UEBA engine and eventually into the Log Analytics to the identity info table. Other than those two tables, as I mentioned before, we have also the anomalies table, which I will explain a bit more about in the demo that we'll just show you.
Perfect. Without further ado, let's do the demo.
It's demo time.
Let's do it. So we're here in the Sentinel solution. And first of all, I'm going to show you how to enable UEBA in case you're not already using it. So from the toolbar right here, I will go to settings again. And here you have a UEBA enablement. So you have two options here. First of all is to set UEBA. Another one is to make sure that anomalies is turned on right here. I will go into UEBA settings. And here what you have to do is to onboard UEBA through this click right here that you need to do. And then you can integrate different things into UEBA. As I mentioned before, we have the entity syncing part from the entity providers. So you can choose if you want to do entity syncing from Azure Active Directory or on-prem Active Directory. It can be just one of those, or it can be the two. It depends on your environment settings and your preferences. Once you do that, you just need to click apply, and you can move on to the other section where you can integrate different data sources into UEBA. Obviously, the more the merrier, but you can choose which ones will be most beneficial to you personally. So currently, you can have audit logs from Azure, you can have Azure Activity, Azure Sign logs, or Windows on-prem security events. And more to come soon.
Okay, so then the data sources that I select here will be the ones that are reached by the UEBA insights that you showed before, right?
Exactly. Cool. And now that we have our UEBA enabled, I want to show you how it looks like in Log Analytics. So as I mentioned before, we have a few tables where you can see the output of the UEBA engine. And the first one will be the identity info table. Here you can see all the contextual information that we gathered from AD or AAD or both. And so, for example, you can see the full name of the user, you can see the display name, you can see the department, the job title, but also, for example, you can see the risk level that we got from AADIP, Azure Identity Protection. You can also see some tags that came through watch lists. So if you set a watch list for VIP users, you'll be able to see that this specific user is a VIP user. Also, you can see the blast radius, like I mentioned before, and you can see where this user was originated from. So if you have hybrid environments where you have both on-prem and cloud identity management, you'll be able to see very easily where this user has been coming from. Every time that an attribute is being changed for a user, you'll get a new log in the identity info table. You can see very easily what was the reason for this new log to be created. And you can track those changes very easily through the identity info table. You can join it with other tables to do some correlation and basically get all the information from one place right here.
Is there a periodic refresh that happens on the table, on the whole table?
Yes, there is. Every 2 weeks, we will do what we call a full sync to make sure that all of our data is fresh, and you'll be able to see the identity info table for all the users that has been synced from this specific provider.
Fantastic. And that, by the way, guys, is also very useful to be used to use this information in our analytic rules, right? Because as you know, analytic rules can only look 14 days in the past. So we're able to use all the very useful information that we have in this table within our analytic rules to do correlation, to get additional data from identity info table, etc.
Yes, 100%. So another table that I want to show you was the behavioral analytics table. As I mentioned before, all the information that goes into the UEBA engine will be enriched and will end up in the behavioral analytics table. Here you'll see events, whether if they eventually triggered as anomalies or not. So you can use this for a deep dive investigation or to create hunting rules on top of it or anything else that Sentinel can offer through the log analytics experiences. I want to show you one example of the power of UEBA and how this output is going to look like at the end. So in this case, we're looking at an event that we found for process creation. So you can see here that you have the user who ran this process. You can see the exact command line that the user has been using to run this process. You can see that we found out that this was the first time that this user has ran this process from this specific directory. So it's a very specific indication for suspicious activity, but you have all the details that you need to understand if this is really a part of an attack. You have not only the command line, but also the name of the process, which in this case is PowerShell. You have the parent process, which in this case is CMD. And you have all the other contextual enrichments that we provide regardless to this specific activity. And yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Idan, I was going to ask you, is there a documentation or reference where we can see all the different insights that can come from UEBA? I see this one, the first time process created from directory by user, which is super helpful, by the way. Do we have a list of all the ones that can come through UEBA?
Yes, of course. We have an official documentation with all the different enrichments. We have like the baseline and the timing that we need to create those detections and enrichments, and everything is detailed throughout our documentation. I guess we can add links at the end for anyone who wants to take a second look at our enrichments.
For sure, we'll put the link in the comments.
Awesome. And just to close the loop right here on this specific event, partial can be used by attackers. It's a very basic method to use in their kill chain. And this event, for example, will need some further investigation. So this is an example for some kind of lead that you can use to do some investigation based on UEBA outputs, or use it as supportive evidence when you are investigating an incident. I also wanted to show you an example for an anomaly, because eventually anomalies will be used as your main focus on UEBA, because you don't have to try and figure out whether if it was anomalous activity or not, like in the behavioral analytics table. Here you will get exactly what you need to do some investigation or use it when you're investigating any incident. And in this specific example, you'll be able to see that we find some kind of anomalous activity regarding account creation. In the description, you'll be able to see who was the user who created an account and who was the account that was created in this process. You'll be able to find MITRE tactic and technique that will provide you with more context. And obviously, we'll find the evidence for why this was an anomaly.
Idan, I see a lot of information here, a lot of insights. I saw a score. Can you talk more about the score that was represented within the results of that query?
Yes, of course. So we have what we call an anomaly score, as you see right here. And this score is between 0 to 1 and help you get a sense of how we are confident in the anomalous behavior that we triggered right here. The higher the score, the more confident we are with the anomaly. And actually, you can use it also to tune certain anomalies if you want to reduce noise in your environment, or just to make sure that you focus on the really, really high fidelity anomalies that we trigger. So through the anomalies configuration, you'll be able to control this threshold and change the scoring that you want to be triggered in your own environment.
Idan, can you briefly show how that's done?
Of course. So this is the analytics blade that you can get through right here in the toolbar. All you have to do is to go to anomalies. And here you have all the different templates of the anomalies that can be provided within Sentinel. I can filter it down to UEBA. I can choose one of the templates. In this case, it's UEBA anomalous account access removal. And in order for me to create an anomaly that will be customized to my needs, I will need to duplicate this anomaly right here. So from this screen right here, you'll be able to configure the anomaly through the score threshold. So right here, I have this bar, and I can simply slide it down until I'm satisfied with the score that I want to set. So once I figure out which score I want to be used as a threshold, I can also try to use the result previous screen right here to see in my own environment which anomalies will be triggered. It can give me a sense of how noisy it might be and make sure I'm finding this sweet spot where I find what's beneficial for me, but not overflood myself with anomalies that can create noise sometimes. Another thing that I want to show you was the entity pages. Entity pages are basically a summary of information that we gather for different entities in Sentinel. You can find pages for users, for devices, for IoT devices, and IPs. And each page have three main sections. You have the ID of the entity, where you find general information that we gather from entity providers. you have the overview right here, which gives you just a timeline of the different activities, alerts, and anomalies that a user has been involved in. And if there are some additional information or insights that we want to share regarding a specific entity, you'll be seeing it right here in this section in the page. Another important thing about UEBA is our Content Hub solution. Our Content Hub solution that was created by Javier contains different hunting queries that really describe specific attack scenarios that can be identified using UEBA. So you have 23 hunting queries for different threat scenarios that we thought that can be relevant for lots of customers. I would advise to go into it, try to play with it, maybe you'll find something interesting, but most of all, try to get inspired by what we created to make some hunting queries that will be relevant and tailored for your own organization. And obviously, you'll be able to find documentation with all the details about the queries that we created right here in our official documentation.
But one thing that I wanted to mention about the solution itself, Idan, is that some of the queries do correlation between our behavior analytics table, but also they include some of the watchlist templates that we have in Sentinel. These are templates that we know the schema for. We have things like our VIP watchlist, our terminated employees. Oh, you were gonna go there, right, Idan? Thanks.
Yeah. It's a very important part because I think it can really enhance the value of UEBA, especially through those hunting queries. You can find, as Javier began to say, VIP watchlist. We have the high value assets watchlist, identity correlation, terminated employees. You can really add your own data into the watchlist and they will automatically correlate into UEBA outputs. So as we saw earlier, we found the VIP user in the identity info table, but you can also use them in the hunting queries to really get more specific results for your organization. So speaking of our hunting queries from the Content Hub solution, let me show you how can we very easily get results from those hunting queries. So in the hunting blade, through the queries tab, I can add filter, choose source, and here just select UEBA Essentials, which is the name of our Content Hub solution. And here you can see all the queries right here. We can choose one of those that makes sense to us that we want to try out, or we can simply check this one right here and click on Run Select Queries. And some will get results naturally and some will not. So let's try to see which one will come up with nice results that we can test. Okay, so I see already that we have the anomalous resource access that returned with some results. View results, okay. And here we can find all the results that came from this specific query. And so you can go into it, look at the different enrichments that we added, see whose user specifically it is, and most importantly, see the activity insights, which are the evidence for why we found out that this specific activity was an anomaly. So right here, we can see that this activity of remote access is not something that is common among the user peers, and specifically the device that the user logged into is not common for the peers to log in. So you need to go look deeper into it and try to investigate whether this specific activity is true positive or not. But this is a great lead to start from if you want to look at specific scenarios.
Thank you so much, Idan, for being such a great guest on our show, the Microsoft Sentinel in the Field series. Javier, thank you again for the great engagement, the great questions. UEBA is the way to go. Enable it. Know more about it. Hopefully that this episode gave you more of an insight when it comes to what is UEBA and the power that it can bring when it comes to your SOC. Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. I was happy to be here.